you're going to keep making new connections. More people are going to know who you are. You're going to make yourself more professionally visible, and more people are going to want to work with you. And just like working out, maybe 1 or 2 times you're not going to see a difference, but if you're consistent over a period of time, you're going to see benefits.
Hey, Matthew, I'm super excited to have you join me for this episode of Coffee with Closers.
Excited to be here, Samuel. So definitely enjoy talking with you.
Most certainly. Well, we go way back.
Yeah.
We've known each other for quite some time, and I've been seeing a lot of your social content. And you've been coming up in my LinkedIn feed. I'm like, man, I got to get back with Matthew and probably get him on my show. That's how the conversation happened, and I'm happy that we're connecting here. So you're certainly a pretty well-known figure in the space. You're an author. You interview a lot of very experts in the space. You are also a VP of strategy and innovation at a very reputable company. You worked at a lot of up-and-coming early startups and very, very established companies in the past, in multiple roles, primarily in the sales function, managing sales team, and things of that nature. So, for all the things you've been able to accomplish, including writing a book and all of those things, what would you say is one of your biggest accomplishments that you're very, very proud of?
Wow, one of my biggest accomplishments. I loved working for Yaymaker. I loved working with Min Brown, oversees all of our private events. Dan Herman is our co-founder and CEO. We had to really pivot during the pandemic from in-person events to virtual events and adding new experiences and even shifting at that time from a B2C to more of a B company and doing a lot of corporate team building events. We started working with celebrities. Just I think how we pivoted through the pandemic is one thing that I'm very proud of. And I'd say also in this journey, especially the last few years, I think I have become more of a thought leader and an expert and a consultant when it comes to corporate culture, event planning, employee engagement, and have been really able to work with some amazing people.
They're very happy to hear. Would you consider yourself more of an entrepreneur, or how do you kind of consider yourself?
I consider myself an entrepreneur, but also an entrepreneur. So I work for Yaymaker, and I try to be entrepreneurial, and it helps me with business development and partnerships. And then also I'm entrepreneurial at help my wife with real estate. I do some consulting and speaking. So I'd say a combination, but I like the term entrepreneur, that you're working with a company, and if you have ideas, help that company grow. So
how do you find the balance, especially let's just say as a founder, you have a lot of entrepreneurs who are also entrepreneurs on the side, where you want them to not have like divided attention, right? Like they're spreading their attention across multiple ventures at the same time and not have the sole focus on the company's core mission and function. So how do you balance that, and how do you entrepreneur minded leadership to encourage this sort of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship at the same time?
wow, it is not easy. I've been fortunate in the sense that I mentioned two people, Dan Herman and Min Brown. And Min, who oversees our private events, knows that I like to get active and share about Yaymaker and the things that I'm doing. And so it kind of helps with sales. Dan's giving me a lot of latitude as well as a CEO. And even like my book, I talk about Find Your Yay. I was very strategic in even that as a title, because here I can be entrepreneurial, have a book, but also I share my journey with Yaymaker, how I utilize like a LinkedIn to help bring in 60 corporate clients to our company. So you hear about work-life balance and a balance. I try to integrate things. Our company is known for doing a lot of paint night events. And like even like I work with my wife. She has started a real estate group with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Well, as a customer service appreciation party, we did a paint night. So it was like, so it wasn't as a conflict of interest as much. I try to integrate some things, but you have to be careful. You got to make sure it's the right company, right culture. So I don't have an easy answer for that. I do think in today's day and age, you're seeing more fractional work, and more and more companies know employees also may have a side hustle or something like that. You want to make sure you're very transparent with the company who you work for, but I do see that becoming more and more what's happening today.
Yeah, and certainly it's has accelerated a lot more since COVID too, with everybody is able to have work,
Yeah.
be able to work from anywhere. So you've worked at a lot of different companies, like even Groupon and so many other companies like that. So what have you seen in terms of the company sales culture? How has that evolved from your experience, at least having been in this place for probably over the last 2 decades in the sales roles.
Just to clarify, how have I seen sales culture in general change with companies?
Yeah,
Or
exactly. Yeah, over the
so
last two decades or so that you've been in the sales function and having been in a role helping sales team build and grow sales team in an organization.
so it's really changed a lot. Where it used to be, I would say, I used to work for the Tribune, where it was very corporate, suits, ties. It's about cold calling, meeting face to face, and then eventually emails. And it was very structured. It was very hierarchical. And now I feel like things have changed where it's more relationships. Social media has changed dramatically
Hmm.
on connecting with people, and it's not just cold calls and things like that. I think you're hearing the word authentic a lot, people kind of
Hmm.
being themselves more and sharing more. So I feel like sales are becoming even more relationship based, but it's been tough. And now with this whole working from home has grown, that's changed culture a lot, where you
Hmm.
saw you have to be in the office all the time to you can completely work from home to now corporations are saying we think people are more productive often when they're in the office, and they're some are trying 3 days a week. I mean, they're still tweaking and experiencing. And so I don't know. It's a balance. And I think each industry, each company, each culture is a little different. And I don't think we've completely figured it out yet. And so, I mean, those are some things that I am seeing. And
Yeah.
I know it's harder for leaders to help make sure people are really feeling connected. And I think that's a real important part.
Yeah, and obviously you've sat under a lot of different leadership, and you've seen good and bad in many of them. And some of those companies still around and still thriving, and some of them kind of disappeared off the face of the earth.
Yep.
So, what are some universal principles that you saw worked really well in all of these organizations that you would say, hey, it should be applied to or at least followed by any ambitious company,
You
sales
know,
sales.
I think what's most important is a company effectively communicating what their mission is, what the value is. So you get all employees, you talk about sales, people buying into this. This is their value. This is what differentiates.
Hmm.
I think having very transparent communication, what's going well and what's not going well. I've seen too many companies hide behind the curtains on the things not going well. And I think employees appreciate that open communication. I think empowering employees a little more to make them sure their voices are heard more, I think is all very important. So I really think it has to do with communication. It has to do with, again, employee engagement, making sure people have their voice, making feel like they're not just a number. So those are things that I think have consistently helped. But,
Hmm.
bottom line, businesses are trying to make money. And when business is hard, it gets challenging. And so I've seen a lot of really good companies struggle, and culture can obviously affect. But I think, again, I think it starts at the top, and when a CEO and their leaders are communicating well and they believe in that personality and values, I think that really helps.
Yeah, certainly. Obviously, there's been a lot of changes, like you said, right? The personnel, the culture, the working remote, all of those things. But what are some strategies that you've seen to work really well? Especially you've been in the forefront selling to businesses from at least as far as I've known you, right? You've been always selling to businesses, whether big or small. But what are some specific strategies that you seem to have worked universally when it comes to selling from a sales standpoint?
So when I think of strategies,
Hmm.
I have found partnerships
Hmm.
can really grow sales. So when you find a complementary business where you can refer their services or vice versa, like the
Hmm.
affiliate programs, can make a big difference, and really effectively that. Again, I don't know if this is more strategy or tactical, but I do think the shift with social media has really helped certain sales teams and organizations. I think companies that are embracing AI,
Hmm.
I think that is a fast moving train that the companies that are embracing are doing on. But I think this more making sure companies aren't siloed.
Hmm.
When marketing is working very well with sales and operations and they're not siloed, making that a priority can
Hmm.
make a big difference. Making sure incentives are aligned. I've just seen too many companies with their different divisions, their incentives aren't aligned. So those are things that I've seen help teams grow or build sales. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole concept of like the sales and marketing alignment is becoming a big concept
yep,
in talking points, and I think they kind of put this whole revenue operations
yep,
as a core function of a company's growth strategy nowadays.
yep.
So going back to when you just talked about like, hey, you talked about like the overarching strategy, right? Like the one to many versus the one to one sort of a strategy. Like, how do you start to identify like the one to many strategy as a go to market strategy on the sales side? And how have you been able to identify like the perfect alignment of companies or partnerships that you can build that's going to drive you the most success? Because I've heard, CPAs are a perfect one to go because they always are, fixing people's accounting problem. They know the owners. Try to go partner with a CPA because they know all the relationships they can introduce. But they're the worst guys, from at least my experience, in terms of thinking proactively to give you an introduction. So I'm just curious, how have you been able to find strategic alliances that were very, very profitable and useful for you in terms of building relationship that drives new customers?
Hoping I answer your question with this, but for me, LinkedIn has been professionally one of my best friends.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got about a billion people on the platform. Again, it's not a one to one. In a way, I've consistently been growing, especially these last 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
have over 15,000 followers, have really been mindful of my content. The top 5 people following me are CEOs,
Mm-hmm.
presidents, founders, co-founders, like head of HR. I mean, I'm being real thoughtful with my content, and then I'm not one to one. I am basically building out some trust and content to many
Mm-hmm.
thousands of people, and that's kind of helped. And I've been a real strong advocate to encourage other people to really embrace. So that's one platform that I think can really work with others.
Mm-hmm.
um, but again, to your point, it's like, I think it's really identifying who are your best type of prospects. What is you're going to get your best bang for your buck, and how do you zero in, identify it, and then yeah, I don't know. I think growing a strong referral program
Mm-hmm.
can be very beneficial to grow sales or things like that. So hopefully, I touched on or answered most of
Yeah.
your
So the
question
reason
there.
I was asking is obviously the I want to definitely get to the find your yay and
Yeah.
talking about how to use LinkedIn to get your name in front of audience that would buy from you. But I was also going back to your original idea of one to many, building strategic relationship that would give you referrals, right? Because oftentimes I've been told, yeah, you should have strategic relationships and you should make the first intro, make a lot of introduction, and they feel obligated to make an intro to you, right? And
Right.
oftentimes people tell you, okay, CPA firms usually have your customers because they're serving the very similar customer base, or attorneys, they usually have similar customers, go partner with those attorneys or whatnot, right? But what I've seen is like those are the least likely people that are proactive in making introductions. Is it because we're just doing a poor job of training and prepping them on how we can help and serve their end customers, or is it because we don't have incentive programs that would benefit them, or at least have a reason for them to make that intro? How can you make those one to many affiliate model be successful?
So I do think the right incentives, the right recognition. I mean, a lot of people, I mean, just recognizing and sharing, I think can make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
I do find that human psychology, this whole being reciprocal,
Mm-hmm.
if you help and make referrals to other people that you want refer to you, it can make a big difference. So again, I'm talking a little more tactically, but I do find those things on an individual level has been very effective for me
Mm-hmm.
in helping with partnerships. But so I think it's just a matter of, again, keeping it top of mind, and as I said, the right incentives, right recognition, I think is important.
Yeah, because a lot of times I think the incentive is probably part of the reason why sometimes those relationships don't really take off,
Hmm.
and partially because they haven't done good enough referrals and they weren't able to get compensated for those as well. But let's
Correct.
talk about your book, right? Like finding your yay, and you certainly,
Yeah.
like you said, you've built an audience, and you really were very strategic on the type of people you connected with, so the messages that you're going to post is going to resonate with those people, right? Like you said, the
Mhm.
founders, the presidents, the HR professionals who care about company culture, building innovative companies and whatnot. So whatever the content that you post is going to resonate with those people. So you are actually able to benefit,
Hmm.
and then they're also able to benefit. So like tell us a little bit about, like, not everybody has the personality type like you can, who can be outspoken, has something to say, right? So like, how do you help somebody to go and start small? Because obviously I'm pretty sure your book is very tactical and gives a lot of insights, but what are some ways that people can actually start to build that momentum? Because I'm sure it's not that easy to build a 15,000 followers and have the right type of people following you.
Right. So, I mean, again, I skew or talk a lot about LinkedIn, but this can be with any social platform or things. I mean, ways of growing. Just being on podcasts, talking on panels, introducing. I mean, again, it's just growing a network or things like that. So the first premise I say encourage everybody to be like, what's important to you and what
Hmm.
can align with personally who you are and professionally, what can help you and your company.
Hmm.
So those are things to think of messages. So I use, for my example, my company does team building events. And I realize that's something I like to talk about and be an expert, but I like to talk a little more broadly and that can involve that. So I talk a lot about corporate culture and employee engagement. And so those are things, whatever industry you're in, to think about. And
Hmm.
a lot of people are shy to post because either they don't know what to post, they're worried people aren't going to engage with it, or they're worried that they're going to post something and if anything is grammatically incorrect or things like that, they're going to be judged and it's always out there. And my big thing is to tell people it's not that scary. Don't overanalyze it. I mean, almost anything you post, as long as it's not controversial, politics, religion, you're going to be pretty safe. Or don't share any special secrets, confidential information with your company. If you
Hmm.
stay away from those things, almost everything else should be fine, and you should see benefits. And you can crawl, walk, run. So I just encourage people, you don't have to be a content creator and post every day, but once a month, if you can share something going on in your industry, something going on with work, shout out an employee or a client, those are all things that are going to be beneficial. And also, if you engage in other people's content, you're just going to strengthen your relationship with them. When people
Hmm.
post, they want to feel validated, they want to be recognized, they want to be heard. Just put a like, if you comment a thoughtful comment, not just nice job, but hey, I thought this was interesting because of A, B, and C. And by the way, this is something I like to do. That can continue to grow. If you're consistent with that,
Hmm.
you're going to keep making new connections. More people are going to know who you are. You're going to make yourself more professionally visible, and more people are going to want to work with you. And just like working out, maybe one or two times you're not going to see a difference, but if you're consistent over a period of time, you're going to see benefits. So the first thing I just tell people is make it a little more of a priority. Take that first step, just a little more focus and discipline, and you will see the benefits. So, but part of it's just in someone's head. It's just
Hmm.
that's what I try to do.
And what are some tactical things that you do? Because obviously, like you said, right, consistency is not something that just by happenstance. You got to have a system to be able to accomplish that. So, are there some things that you do? Hey, maybe time blocking in the beginning of the month or beginning of the week or something like that. What are some things that you do to find the time to think, create the content, and then obviously schedule and post, and then go actually engage with people that are commenting on your content or being able to respond to some other people's content?
Yeah, so there's a few things. Now I'm a little bit more of an organic poster. Like I get inspired and I post, but I've done different things. For someone that wants to be real active, I used to have themes each day. I mean, literally Monday was a motivational, Tuesday was more of a thought leadership, Wednesday I do a poll, Fridays I do something funny. Like today I posted this Taylor Swift business lesson type marketing post where there was one truck that said Taylor in the back. That was the company. The second one right next to it was Swift. But anyway, so there were themes on that. But I would say in general, tactical things is literally once a month to start. If you want to crawl, walk, run, to just carve out time. You can do Tuesday, 3 p.m. once a month, first Tuesday. You're going to do a post. So that's one tactical thing. Just if you structure the time, whether it's reading, whether it's working out, whether it's an instrument, if you structure some time, that helps. Using ChatGPT and AI can give you great ideas. I don't recommend just using that completely verbatim, but if you're like, say, you can literally type, hey, this is my industry. I'm in taxes. I'm in web development. I'm in software. I'm in legal. And just saying, hey, share with me ideas on what to post. They can give you some ideas. Looking what other people post that you like, that's relevant to you, that you kind of aspire to be, that can be helpful. You ask what's tactical. I recommend everybody. I took a LinkedIn masterclass. I try to always learn from others. There's a woman named Hala Taha who I took one of hers, and the first thing she had us do was identify 5 people on LinkedIn that you like their branding, their content, things like that, and then think about what you like, what you don't like, and what could you do to improve your own content and profile. So that's a tactical step that somebody could do that's going to start giving them directions where they'd want to go.
Hmm. That makes sense. And obviously, like some of your content, it's a mix of things. I'm assuming, like I've saw some of it is the clips from interviews you've done. Some of them are just some excerpts, some content that you've read, or just some thoughts? Like, how do you decide on, obviously you had some sort of a system when you got started, like Mondays for motivation, Tuesday for thought leadership, but like, how do you mix and match some of those content types and formats as well from a practical standpoint?
You know, again, I'll share. I'm a little more organic, so it comes somewhat natural to me, or I get excited. I can print, put out content pretty quickly. But to share with you some thoughts or things like that, I have found a few things that I like doing. I've been growing my audience. Kind of, you're interviewing me. I'll often literally ask if I can interview somebody. Now, you've got a much more sophisticated system and editing and things like that. I'll often just do a Zoom, record, and I've just got content right there, post and things like that. And I find if I can ask somebody, I love talking to CEOs and other leaders about culture. So corporate
Mm-hmm.
culture is one topic that I've decided to lean in on, and it makes it really easy when I get others to share their best practices, and it just expands my network in the audience when I keep, once a week interview somebody else. That's one. Now, again, that might be more of a 2.0 or 3.0 version. But as I said, for me, I will try to shout out clients, shout out partners, or anything I see that's been unique or interesting. I will like to share that. And also I like, you got to be yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I try to share things. Sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're a life lesson, sometimes it might be a quote. I mean, just what something that I think is interesting that others I think would find interesting. And I try to be thoughtful of the audience. I Sometimes I'm self-promoting, but I try to make it more about the audience. Like, what lessons or takeaways can you get? So any way I can help a professional. I love Canva. I think it's a great way of a super easy, user-friendly type of program that can, make thumbnails or pictures or graphics. And I'm not a graphic designer, but in minutes, seconds, I can create some. So I'll share, hey, here's a tool that I use and that I like. I've done that with ChatGPT. I've done that with other programs. So what I'm learning out there, I like to share, and I like to share my experiences.
Mm-hmm. And then I think you mentioned company culture. I'm so curious about, obviously, having interviewed and working for a company that helps other organizations with company culture. What are some key principles that you learned about company culture? And I know company culture is built and not just, it doesn't come out of thin air. So
Yeah,
are there some things that you learned about company culture that you might be able to share?
you know, to oversimplify, I mean, culture is defined as your values and beliefs and getting everybody aligned, things like. But really, I think to oversimplify, you could call culture personality. Well, it's the company's personality.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think that starts from the top. I think it starts from the CEO that can kind of dictate it. And I think, I still think for somebody's strengths or weaknesses, to be honest, this is who I am, and this is my strengths, my weaknesses, but this is what I expect from others. I'm going to try to hold myself accountable. And I feel like that's a start. I mean, I do think it's important to work hard and play hard. And I think, companies that emphasize recognition, emphasize professional growth, you know, do events to celebrate. I think all those things help. I mean, I know companies, I think it's been shown mathematically that revenues, profits increase when you get diverse perspectives. I see a lot of companies invest in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And our company, by the way, has diversity, equity, inclusion speakers. But when you're investing in that and you communicate that, I think that can help. So those are all things. But again, I'd say it's personality. It's the personality of the company.
Understood. So obviously you have this job title at your current company called the VP of Strategy and Innovation. What does that actually mean?
It is a fancy title that, because I do like figuring out ideas and strategies to help a company grow. I'm always trying to think of creative and innovative ways as well. As I said, I like sharing with our senior strategy team, our leadership team, different opportunities. But, I'm involved in a lot of things. For the most part, I'm mostly focused on our business development and growing partnerships, growing revenues, adding, a speaker series. So that's been great. I've been trying to figure out new opportunities to work with venues we work with where there's a new revenue stream with that. So, but to answer your question, I'm always trying to think about ways for our company to grow and strengthen relationships. And that's really what it is. And innovation, it doesn't necessarily have to be something earth shattering. I shared with you earlier that our company and most companies had to really shift and change. You hear the word pivot all the time when the pandemic hit. So we had to reshape our experiences, how we present them, but small things can make a difference. So when you think about innovation, it might just be changing a template. It might just be an extra way to communicate. Little small changes can be innovations that can make a big difference. So,
mm-hmm. Matt, obviously you have a lot of things going on. You are actually, like you said, you're an entrepreneur working in this company, strategy, innovation, VP function. You're providing a lot of recommendation to your leadership team. You're also playing business development. You also are an entrepreneur at heart, helping your wife with her business, and then also doing all the things. I saw you have a franchise business. You're buying and selling houses. There's so many things that you're doing. How do you find time for all of this? What are some productivity hacks that you have that get you to get stuff done?
Wow. I'm guilty of spreading myself thin. Mm-hmm. I like taking on a lot of things. Actually, I've had a franchise, this Homevestors, which I love the franchise. And I think anyone that wants to get into rehabbing, I think this is an incredible organization. My wife and I have been doing almost 10 years. We're actually looking to sell our franchise as my wife has really grown as a real estate broker in the Western Chicagoland suburbs. So I do think you got to focus. But I think you got to be realistic on your interests, your bandwidth, the people you work with. Working with good people can make a big difference, and you can take new steps. But, for the most part, I encourage somebody, if they have a full-time job, to make sure they do that really well. If they have side interests, take, I say, crawl, walk, run type of approach a little bit, or things like that. My wife's cousin had a full-time job, but she was really good at organizing and helping others. And she started doing this on a part-time, and I started giving her some thoughts, advice, and she was telling me her passion. And within 2 years, she has turned this into a full-time business with employees that is growing. I love helping entrepreneurs really follow their passion. But I would say in general, get a real sense of what you're interested in and what you're good at. Where do you want to go? Find mentors, find other people that have done that and ask for their advice, and make a plan on how to get there. But don't try to do too much too soon. Try something, get a client or two, see if you can build on that and take it from there. But I would say figure out those first few steps.
Yeah. Don't bite more than you can chew as well. Right?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
So obviously, you've learned a lot in your life. You've been in multiple leadership roles, and you've gotten to where you are, obviously through your determination and hard work and everything else. Knowing what you know today, what advice would you give the younger Matt as an advice?
Wow. The younger Matt. I'm someone with a little ADHD. I get excited about a lot of ideas. I know sometimes when I can communicate to people, depending on who it is, it can be a little potentially alarming, or, oh my God, I'm just like a pit bull driving. So I would tell myself to maybe listen a little more. I like to talk and take a step back, really think about who you're communicating to and how you're communicating, and adapting more to their styles. Because I get so excited, I just kind of I just want people to feel what I'm feeling and get on board. And it doesn't always work that way. And I want to and also I got advice once from Joey Nalevka, who's over at House, who is a friend and kind of a mentor, who always tell me, Matt, making sure that what you're doing and initiatives that you have, you're an idea guy, make sure they're aligned to your job, your department, and think about that. It's like, sometimes I like to take really big swings, and but really make sure, this whole idea of alignment, I think, is important. So anyway, but those would be some advice. I mean, I would give my younger self is slow down, think things through, realize who you're talking to, and kind of lay things out. That would be for me to be, I think, a little more effective.
A great note to kind of end our conversation. Matthew, thank you so much for sharing your life lesson and wisdom with our audience.
Well, I appreciate it. Anybody can reach out to me on LinkedIn or at mrolnick@Yaymaker. And I look forward to keep staying in touch, and hopefully we can continue to collaborate. So
awesome.
This episode of Coffee with Closers is brought to you by OneIMS, a leading digital marketing agency helping businesses win new customers. To request a free marketing ROI audit, please visit oneims.com. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. To make sure you never miss an episode, please subscribe.